Okay. Welcome, guys. Like we got Galataki in the chat, and oh, look who else is there! It's Jack. Hello,
Hey.
Jack and Gala. How are you guys doing? Um, just gonna kind of do some more chit chatting tonight. I do kind of have a more of a, oh, what do you want to call it? A idea of what we'll do tonight. So we're just going to. I'm going to start off with I really don't know exactly what to start off with, but so what I'm going to do first is say hello to my co-host. So, hi Becca, how are you? I'm going to say hello to CHAREE and Alice and Kay and to Jack. And I imagine Susan will be here a little later or as soon as she is able to get off of work, I'm assuming. So, y'all want to take a minute and say hello?
Hello.
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 Stupid,
Hello.
stupid word. So dumb.
Work.
I know, right? I know that's too bad, but she'll be here. She's I would imagine. I mean, we haven't really talked very much this last several days, but she didn't say she wouldn't, so I'm sure she'll be here.
Oh yeah.
As I started to mention, I'm going to kind of give a direction tonight for a change. Won't that be nice? I'm going to start with. I'm just going to bring up the secret hearings that took place in Daniel's case. And when I say secret hearings, like they were literally secret. Well, unless you were on the state side. If you were on the state side, then of course they were not so secret. But as far as Daniel and his defense team and, all of the people on Daniel's side, the hearing, they were 2 days of hearings and they were closed. And so I don't know, how much time that conversation is going to take. But then I also wanted to share with you guys a video from Michelle Malkin that's it's the one that's called Railroaded, and it's not necessarily about Daniel so much or his case. I mean, it is a little bit, but it does explore wrongful convictions of some other gentlemen who Michelle Malkin um, explored while she was exploring Daniel's case as well. And they're just really very interesting stories, very familiar stories, as we are all very well aware. So, whatever time we don't take up with chit chatting about secret hearings, which I think may be a few minutes, then we'll go ahead and watch that video because I do think it's pretty interesting. So. What I will do is start with, let me, sorry, I don't have that one open. I'm not as ready as I would like to be tonight. I apologize. So, I think this is it. Actually, I had gotten so much better at this, and now I'm just a little less better. And I don't think that one's it either. Oh, sorry, guys. Give me just a minute. Chat amongst yourselves if you would like to say hello or something to everybody in the chat while I get this worked out.
Do you have railroaded, or
I do have railroaded, yeah.
you could flip the order if you want?
Yeah, I could do that. I could do that very well. I have other tabs open today too that don't have anything to do so much with the case.
Yeah.
And so this one I need to close. If I can close that one, and I will share this one.
I would like to personally say hello to Galataki.
Yeah, yeah, you should. You should say hi personally to him.
I
He
mean,
deserves that much, right?
he was over here about an hour ago, so, but you know,
Oh,
I haven't talked to him in about an hour. So
okay.
Well, you better say hi then.
I know.
Yeah, you better. And I don't know why people like to call me. Oh gosh, I can't answer that call. Okay, I think I found the video. So here we go with some uh, secret hearing, secret agent man stuff.
New information surrounding the appeal of Daniel Holtzclaw, the former Oklahoma City police officer convicted of sexually assaulting women while he was on duty.
Now, last week we learned there had been an unusual closed hearing in district court, really raising questions about where the case is headed. Our Lisa Monahan has been digging for answers and even spoke with Holtzclaw himself today. Lisa?
Now, Amanda, I was able to get an interview with Holtzclaw from his prison cell today, but that's not all. In an effort to understand what this hearing was all about, I requested surveillance video from inside the Oklahoma County Courthouse near the judge's chambers. The doors were locked, the public shut out of Judge Timothy Henderson's courtroom. Surveillance cameras captured a team of prosecutors, including the lead in Holtzclaw's trial, arriving ahead of the proceedings. Not even Daniel Holtzclaw or his defense were privy to information discussed during the two-day secret hearing. Now, for the first time, we're hearing from Daniel Holtzclaw in his own words, responding to the secrecy surrounding his appeal.
I'm extremely upset about it because for my trial was unfair and biased, and still to this day it's that way. There were 2 full days where the secret hearing was going on and my lawyer wasn't allowed to be there, let alone know about it. Also, the lead prosecutor in my trial, who lied, gets to weigh in on a response or have his input. How is this in any way, shape, or form fair to me? Not only should I be able to know what's going on the public, but the public has to know as well. If I was a hardworking taxpayer in Oklahoma, I'd be irate. I would be knocking on doors and trying to find an answer. More importantly, for the audience out there listening, this can happen to you, and my case can happen to you.
A court order prevents the lead prosecutor and others Holtzclaw mentioned from responding to his allegations, and the reason for his case being returned to trial court remains a mystery due to documents filed under seal. However, surveillance cameras captured witnesses, including a civil attorney for the city, a deputy chief Johnny Coleman, and OCPD's forensic lab supervisor Campbell Ruddick.
I've never seen anything like this, so it's something significant.
Scott Adams represented Holtzclaw at trial and says based on the people present for the hearing, it would be reasonable to assume it's related to the lab that provided DNA evidence in the case. But he says he can't fathom a scenario that deserves this level of secrecy. Now, Daniel Holtzclaw opened up on several other issues, including DNA evidence that's become a focus of his appeal. I'll have more on that tomorrow at 10. In the newsroom, Lisa Monahan, News 9.
Okay. And then I wanted to share also Brian Bates's opinion of those secret hearings. And I'm not going to lie, I kind of ran across that kind of last minute. So, but it's queued up and ready to go.
Secret court hearings that could end up costing Oklahoma City. Fox 25's Phil Cross was the first to tell you who was at the secret proceedings as part of the Daniel Holtzclaw appeal.
But what does that mean for the case? And what does it mean for taxpayers who are footing the bill for both prosecuting the former cop and defending the city against civil rights complaints? Tonight, Phil Cross gives us a closer look at a Fox 25 follow-up.
In prison for what is likely the rest of his life, former police officer Daniel Holtzclaw maintains he did not sexually assault, rape, or do anything inappropriate with the women he was convicted of assaulting during traffic stops. He's appealing his sentence, but the state has held secret hearings about key information that could impact his freedom. Only no one from his defense team was allowed to attend.
He's on pins and needles. He wants to know, is this good news? Is this bad news? What is it?
Brian Bates is one of Holtzclaw's most ardent defenders. He worked on the case as an investigator and now operates a website in defense of Holtzclaw.
I don't care what side you come down on whether or not Daniel is guilty or innocent. What people need to be aware of is this could happen to them eventually. They could find themselves in the crosshairs. There could be secret hearings going on. There could be things being discussed that are going to affect your and your family's life, and you're not going to have any input.
Thanks to surveillance video from outside the secret hearing, we know the two-day proceeding included a team of prosecutors and the deputy police chief, along with Oklahoma City's chief civil attorney. The city attorney said he wouldn't comment on his role at the hearing, whether he was there to testify or acting as an attorney for the police department. The victims in Holtzclaw's case are suing Oklahoma City, which means the hearing could either hurt that case or create new legal problems for OKC if it is focused on wrongdoing to Holtzclaw, which is what those who have followed the case the closest believe.
If you're asking me to guess, I would say this is obviously in Daniel's favor. The prosecution has circled the wagons. I can guarantee you, if any of this information was negative to Daniel, they'd have sent it out in a press release.
But even for those convinced of the criminal conviction, there was another party kept out. The victims, who say they were sexually assaulted, were also not allowed inside that hearing that could impact their lives. And the public, which pays for everything from the prosecution to the light bills that keep the courtroom illuminated, is left in the dark. Phil Cross, Fox 25 News.
The Oklahoma County DA's office has not returned our multiple messages about the case, but in the past they have told us the new information has nothing to do with allegations of wrongdoing by the DA's office or prosecutors involved in the case.
Okay, so just for fun, we'll whoops. I don't know what's going on with that. So I just thought we would open it up with a little bit of fun controversy chit chat. I think I kind of know how others might feel about it, but if anybody has a particular opinion they'd like to share about those secret hearings, raise your hand, wait to be called on, and then we'll let you chat about it. I'm kidding. Just go ahead and speak up if you have something.
Raise his hand.
Okay. Jack?
In the words of my good friend Alice, bunch of fucking tossers.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
You say it better. I don't have your cool accent, but I can say it in the Joe Exotic accent. He's
that's
from down
good
there.
too.
Yeah.
Go ahead with Joe Exotic.
No, but I just for the life of me, on a more serious note, for the life of me, watching a lot of various cases and trials and all this kind of stuff over the last many years, at least the last, probably really paying more attention to things the last 8 years, probably 7, 8 years. I've never heard ever of the defense being barred when a hearing is called for a defendant that's been either convicted or not convicted. They have a right to be there.
Right.
I don't know how that they can legally do what they've done. It's not for me to answer. That's my opinion, though.
All right. I don't know how either, except that they apparently they do whatever the hell they want to in some of those courts in Oklahoma, so they got away with it. But I agree with Brian, as does Nosy. They must, or maybe it was Scott Adams who said it. I don't remember now who it was, but one of them said, they must. It must be something, or it looks possible that it's favorable to Daniel. Otherwise, it would have already been splattered all over the news, to this day, if it were something more negative that they could say about Daniel. So I agree, though it's not right, but nobody's holding them accountable, and that's what's even almost worse, is that there's nobody holding them accountable.
Well, the judge allowed it to happen, and that raises it again to another level, because now he's he's the next layer before you rise up and whatever from circuit court to to the next level. So,
Right.
I mean, for those that live in that region, I mean, is this something that you've ever heard of or heard anything? I mean,
No,
Okay.
some of the top attorneys said they had never seen anything like that before.
Yeah. CHAREE, do you want to share anything? Oh, she might. No, she's gonna go. She don't want to share jack shit out. I mean,
he's out. He's out.
somebody else's shit. I don't know. Alice, what do you? I'm gonna stop and just jump on with Alice. Alice, what opinion do you have of the secret hearings?
Are you fucking kidding me? How the hell can that fucking happen? You know, his own defense team wasn't even in there, wasn't he invited or anything. How the hell could that go along? You know what I mean? Because nobody's going to know what happened in there. So how is that going to help Daniel in the long run? You know what I mean?
All right. Yeah.
It's disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting.
Right. Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's just one of those parts in the case where you go, wait a minute, I got caught up and I thought that I was reading or listening to something real. Oh wait, I am listening to something real. It really did happen. And it's just unbelievable. T1 has a question. Was there anything significant in the case or local news at the timing of these hearings?
So what happened is Daniel filed his post-conviction application for relief, and based on the pillars of what he was saying in his petition, talking about Elaine Taylor's ineptitude, basically, they called her. Apparently it did all center around her, and they were saying that, well, so let me back up. So he files that, they get a peek at that and know what's coming down the pike. So it was just a couple months later, I think, that they put together these secret hearings and pushed her out the door. Yeah. You see a lot of people retiring instead of being disciplined for problems. But their thing about keeping the public out was that it was a personnel issue, and sealing all the transcripts and all the documents associated with the secret hearings as well.
Well, that's not a secret hearing because of a personnel issue. That's a secret hearing because something's came out and maybe it exculpates Daniel.
Yeah, they just needed to powwow. They needed to get together and figure out what the hell they were going to do, how they were going to address it. They needed to get rid of Elaine, I guess. And, that makes it look like they're doing something about it.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, that is T1. That is what prompted those hearings, was Daniel's petition. So,
when I hear the words secret hearing, secret meetings, it always brings to mind national security or something that can affect millions of people. But in essence, this can affect a lot of people, because if this is allowed to not be addressed, then it could affect a lot of people there, in Oklahoma. I mean, I don't know how many people are in Oklahoma, but I suspect that it's several million. So, if you could find yourself in the crosshairs and convicted or just defendant, and then they could, suddenly decide that they can have a secret meeting and wall everyone out except for, the state players. That's a huge problem for me.
It is.
From a civil rights standpoint. It doesn't matter if you think somebody's right or wrong, guilty or innocent. That's really not the point at all.
I mean, did Daniel's defense not even get a transcript of the hearing?
No, so they were sealed. Everything was sealed, and so there was, there were legal things going on back and forth, and finally the judges said that although Daniel's team should have been allowed to be present, no harm was done by him not being there. Well, according to the judge and someone else, I can't remember who else. We need to get that out and read it. Maybe we'll do that next week.
Yeah.
Look at some documents.
A judge shouldn't be able to decide that. How does he know whether it would be detrimental or beneficial for Daniel or no? Surely that's up to his defense lawyers and that to decide that.
It's just, you read their responses to everything, and it's just like in Brendan and Steven's cases, everything is just such bullshit. I don't really even think they're so much reading the petitions as much as figuring out what their response is going to be. They know that it's going to be negative before they even get the petition. So it's pretty heartbreaking to watch this happening over and over again, not just in Oklahoma.
I can't believe that. That is so fucking surreal that it's like something out of a movie. You know what I mean? No, something that's happening in real life and reality.
Yeah.
Alice, I'd like to actually pose that question. I might do it. Pose this very thing to Beauty, because he typically will respond.
That'd be great.
I'd like to ask him to see how he would reply to that. I can imagine Beauty would probably go pretty much apeshit like we are, and shake his head.
Yeah.
Have you guys talked to? Has there been any question to another one of the legal people that are involved in these various cases? Has anyone? I know CHAREE's here, but I think CHAREE's, you're a little newer to the legal world, right? Or am I wrong?
No, you're right. I am new. I haven't even been a year yet since I became an attorney. So,
but still, this is something that's bewildering to you, I'm sure. Having been through law school recently and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely not what we were taught, in criminal procedure, and it's not right. I can't believe that the Supreme Court or, some appeal court didn't step in and stop it.
Well, the Supreme Court, that would have been perfect, but,
Was Scott Adams still his lawyer at the time?
No, Scott Adams only handled the trial, and then he had an appointed attorney for his direct appeal.
Yeah.
And he was also, I believe, handling all of the, if I'm not mistaken, I think he was handling all of the secret hearing stuff too. Yeah, he's had some roller coaster with attorneys. So
Kay, this appellate attorney, do you know if he filed any kind of motion or anything with a higher court about these secret hearings, or you don't know?
I think it was in the Supreme Court.
It is. I'm looking at it right now. I pulled it up, but I haven't had a chance to read it carefully. But
maybe we can come back to that after we watch Railroaded.
Okay.
And by then, because CHAREE doesn't want to watch it. She'd rather read. She hasn't read enough today yet, I'm sure.
Like the rest of us, right? We're like blind in one eye, can't see out of the other one.
Right.
Okay, yeah, I'll pick it up.
I mean, I don't know how and who you could challenge that to. I don't know how everything works.
Yeah, I'm not sure the next step above or whatever court he would have to go to file some kind of injunction or.
And is a time limit up on it by now? Or, I mean, it's always some hoop that you forgot to jump through, or
That's a good question.
There are always so many. It's just such a game.
Well, yeah, it's, just thinking about, and I haven't really read too much about Oklahoma's, statutes and that kind of thing. That I know I've dove deep into the Wisconsin ones, and I swear for every statute they've got 55 exceptions listed below it. That's why they can get away with it. I'm not kidding you. It's terrible.
Yeah. Well, shit must change.
Yeah.
Yes, it must. It surely must. Okay. Great opinions, great questions and comments in the chat. Thank you guys very much. That's what we like. We like to get minds thinking and, trying to, I don't know, figure out a way to, I feel like if nothing has come of that so far, maybe nothing will come of it. But at some point, just like with the rest of the case, the truth about those secret hearings has got to come out. I mean, there's got to be some sort of somewhere along the line, there's got to be something. I wishful thinking, I guess, but it definitely needs to. It's just outstanding. It's just incredibly outstanding to me that could even happen in this world or country, but it did. So.
I mean, even if it's anything dramatic that happens in the case right away, but at least let his defense lawyers get the bloody transcripts so that they can give him a decent defense. Because holding that information back, Daniel's got no chance of producing a decent defense again.
Right.
Let me say, I got sidetracked. They did end up being able to, I don't know if they actually released parts, heavily redacted parts to his attorney. I know initially his attorney had to go stand there and read the documents. He wasn't allowed to take them out of the room or have a copy of them or make copies. So he went one afternoon and couldn't get through them and had to go back the next day. But I believe at some point parts of them had been released. And Galataki was saying that he couldn't believe there hadn't been more of an uprising about this. I think it's just because of everything that was going on at the time, with Black people being killed by white officers on a daily or weekly basis. Nobody wanted to stand up for the white cop who, is accused of assaulting 13 women. It just wasn't, it just wasn't something that people wanted to stand up for and take the heat. And you decide to stand up for him, and then you have to know how to defend your position. And it's hard with this case as it was designed to even get a grip and be able to talk intelligently about the case, because it takes a lot of research to understand what they did and what is the truth. And it's just not something that happened quickly. And I think, the secret hearings, they made it through several news cycles instead of usually if something happens in Daniel's case, it's one news cycle and it's out. But the secret hearings Phil Cross was really the one that was on top of that. And then Lisa Monahan came along too from a different station, and they ended up getting the same stuff and reporting the same stuff. But I don't know. I just had brain fade just now, whatever the point was. Sorry.
So,
This won't be the last time.
Well, so basically, what you're saying is that the secret meetings happened, and then several days went by before it was actually reported out into the public?
No. Well, I mean, they were reporting snippets on it, but they didn't have anything until Phil Cross got that surveillance video.
Oh, okay, I got you. I understand.
And so then, which I think he got that. Well, I would have to go back and look. My memory says that he possibly got that before the second day was finished, but that I may not be remembering that right.
I understand.
So yeah, and then it was 2 days of hearings, and then however those surveillance tapes came out, and then it stayed in the news for several days.
I mean, I would think that would not only been on the news, TV news, but in print and radio actually, because that I mean, to me is maybe the people there are a lot of them are jaded and think, okay, well, he's guilty anyway, I don't care, that kind of an attitude. People.
Well, those journalists are the journalists that roasted him and helped convict him, and helped the public convict him before he even had a chance to defend himself.
Sure.
They're the ones who were publishing his termination letter from Bill City saying that, he's fired, and, the predetermination hearing found him to be guilty, and he's fired. And this is the biggest miscarriage, or the biggest instance of police misusing their authority. I mean, I'm not quoting him, obviously. In his however many years, 36 years or however long he was a police officer. So all those journalists were ones who had published that and helped crucify him. So they weren't really either into eating much crow or into like giving him a fair shake anyway. As far as their viewers knew, he was guilty. So
they don't want to eat a big old slab of crow pie.
No, they didn't. They didn't.
Do you guys mind? Would you be offended if I told a short Making a Murderer reporter story?
Not at all. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Absolutely.
This is kind of right up the same alley as far as reporting and reporters. So for those that have been around Making a Murderer and watched it, you don't really see too much. You see a little bit afterwards, but during the investigation, when everything happened, I'm talking about November of 2005 and then onward through 2006, 2007, and then even afterwards, after Man was released, there's a couple of reporters that they were, you could tell right away from the old 2005, 2006 newsreels. We don't have them all, obviously, but this one in particular that I'm going to bring up, her name is Emily Matasic, and she was, you know about her, I'm sure.
Really
yes, she was.
Know about Emily.
Susan knows. Well, she was the first one that actually interviewed Avery when he was in jail in November or early December. I think it was actually late November of 2005. Anyway, she was the first one that interviewed him, and then I think she may have interviewed him again, and then there was two more that were allowed to interview Avery. But this one, Emily Matasic, she was very clear about her feelings in her reporting, and she also had a blog site that she talked about, This was later on in 2016, I think. I got in a pretty big racket with her about her reporting and how she presented herself in reporting. Now, again, people are people, and they feel one way or they feel another. But a reporter, when you're going, to me, when you're going through and reporting the news, you have to stand in the middle. And
yes, you're supposed to be unbiased.
Right.
Yeah.
And that to me, that's where they have to stand. And then if they want to do something different, more power to them. But they're conveying to the public what's supposed to be the truth and not leaning towards one way or the other. So anyway, as most people know, Rookie 1081, he's on Twitter. He's been around a long time. He's been around the case as long as I have. And anyway, he got a hold of these emails between Manitowoc and Calumet and Tom Fallon. And one of the emails was in early 2016, or maybe even late 2015. I can't remember the date, but it was right around when Man was released, and inviting Tom Fallon, Mark Wiegert, and Tom Fassbender. Now, of course, Mark Wiegert, as we all know, is the sheriff now. He was high up in the ranks by that point in time in 2016, late 2015 at CASO. Tom Fassbender was a state agent with the DCI DOJ in Wisconsin. So she's inviting all three of these guys over for a drinking party to watch Man.
Yeah.
This is the reporter.
How cozy. Yeah.
Oh yeah. This cozy relationship that she feels empowered. Now, look, I understand the reporters being friendly with cops and defense lawyers and all that. I get that. I don't have a problem with it. But this is beyond. I mean, to me, maybe it's me being prudish, but I'm trying not to be. But to me, that was really inappropriate. That's, there's actually a lot of arguments that have been ensuing the last few days since Rookie released some of these emails. They're, oh my God, they're so bad against the state. They're awful. The 8mm tape that they didn't evidence tag that we knew nothing about until this email. There's another 8mm tape that is probably the entire flower footage that we've never seen. That's huge.
These are fantastic, not awful.
yeah, that one's great.
For us, yeah.
Is that so? Tell me what that meant when they said we need to get the 8mm working. What was that?
This is a sec. See, we got.
Go ahead and set it up for everyone else who's listening that doesn't know.
Okay. Well, actually there was a flower footage. Sheriff Poggle and Wendy Baldwin went up in an airplane that they contracted on November 4th, 2005 in an effort to locate Teresa's vehicle. And they flew basically her route from home to, around her first appointment and then allegedly around the zippers and around the Avery salvage yard. And they were in an airplane flown by Curtis Drum. And they were up in the air for at least 2.5 or 3 hours. I think they left at like 3 and they came back right around dark. And Wendy Baldwin was doing the video recording. And then on day 2, November 5th, there was more footage. And both of these sets of footage are tied together. They're on one recording that I think it's about a 12-minute recording, but all total, it's really useless. It's really bad. It's shakes real bad, but it's not a several-hour long video of everything. It's snips here, it's snips there. It's been cut and edited all to pieces. That's what got turned over to the defense way back in the day, and that's what we FOIA'd back in 2016. It's the same footage. Apparently, there was another 8mm tape that was never declared. It never got an evidence tag. It was never submitted in discovery at all. And that's what Fallon is referencing when he's saying we need to get this 8mm. That's when he says that Zellner's pissing him off because she wants the full flower footage, the unedited version. And he immediately answered her and said, "What you have, what I have." And then 40 minutes later, he's emailing Wiegert and he's emailing Wiegert and everyone saying, "Hey, we need to get this other 8mm tape going," because I guess they've been told they won't play, which that is really bad. But I don't believe it for a second. I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
So since it wouldn't play, we just pretend like we don't have it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. They didn't evidence tag it. They didn't put it in any ledger. It was not submitted in the discovery list. It crashed turned over to the defense.
Because it doesn't work. And were they asked at trial if they had?
They didn't know anything about it.
Okay.
Kathleen asked for all the flyover footage, whatever they had.
So that started with her. Okay.
Yes, that's correct. Because
Dean and Jerry, I think, asked for it too, did they not?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the fact that he said we need to get that working, I almost think he's covering his ass saying that. Like,
sure.
That's the reason we didn't use it, because, in case that email is seen by somebody. I don't know.
I don't know about you, Susan. I think that they have a clear view of that little section there where the RAV was on November 4th, and that RAV was not there. And if that RAV wasn't there on November 4th, they're fucked.
That's right.
They're screwed.
He walks.
He walks. I think. Well, I mean,
Well, yeah.
It creates a lot of problems for their case.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's the
thank you.
That's the download.
Cool. All right, Rhonda, we'll let you have your show back.
Sorry, Rhonda, I took over.
No, please. I mean, I knew about those emails, and I haven't been to Twitter to look at anything yet, but I knew it was some big stuff coming. So yeah, definitely worth mentioning for sure. Because a wrongful conviction is a wrongful conviction, whether it's Stephen, Brendan, Daniels, or anybody else. But
Plus
when we
thousands.
plus thousands more. Yep, absolutely right, Susan. And when
there's another email, Rhonda, that is from Norm Gollin, and this was clearly after Kathleen had turned in one of her. I think it's probably the PCR. I'd have to look, but regardless, and Norm Gollin is clearly concerned. You'd have to read it because of everything that he wants. He's wanting to re-examine evidence, these alleged buckets that they found in the quarry. Although he wants to drive this route that Kathleen says that Bobby took to get Teresa over to Cuss Road. He wants to go to. This is another really interesting one. He wants to go to the Big Boulder. Now, at the Big Boulder, they found some. Yours probably can tell you exactly what it said, but these bones that they found are human bones in the quarry. But Gon also references the little burn site, which I have no idea what he's talking about. And as far as I know, no one else does either. What little burn site is he referencing? I don't know what he means, because to my knowledge, the only place they ever talked about there being, any kind of devastating fire was Avery's burn pit.
Where they were digging a bag up, what was it where they were on that road and there was an ambulance or something dispatched? Or
that's Cuss Road. That's Cuss Road.
Weren't there bones there, or
they said there weren't? Okay. Only an old pallet and an old peat moss bag that was buried, which absolutely
there was nothing but a stump out there.
I don't know where it would have been then, other than Avery.
Well, there's a photo of that big boulder with a tiny little burn spot there.
Just trying to minimize.
It's
out in the quarry.
Yeah, well, that's another thing. These bones that he wants that were located in that area, they're geotagged from there, and there's certainly not enough of any kind of fire that would burnt down a body to those bones the way that they've shown in that photo. There's no way.
It is
So-
interesting that he was like, he like wants to test her theory and go through everything she said. And, you know,
Yeah.
the way Bobby, you know, the way she says that Bobby could have done it.
Yeah, creating this Denny suspect.
Yeah. So he wants to go through and test the whole thing. That's wild.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, everything. You'd have to read it, Rhonda, when you get a minute and just kind of read through. There's actually a really good, yours made a really good Reddit post, and he detailed what all was in this email that Gon sent, and he references everything that Gon asked for with photos. And you'll see, if you pull it up and look at it, it's absolutely crazy. He would be worried about this shit. If their case was so strong, he'd be like, I mean, so what? Screw her, you know?
Right.
What do you do?
I mean, that's the thing with Daniel's case and all, though. If the evidence that the state in that had was so fucking strong, why are they having secret meetings?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Scares me, Rhonda. Secret meetings. Come on.
Yeah. Hey, Nosy was asking about the redaction, and the reason that they said was, or the reason they gave was that they contained confidential personnel issues or whatever. So, but think about who all was in the room.
Right. Well, they had, what did they have? Galen Gigger, David Prater, Bill City was there, Johnny Coleman was there, Lori McConnell.
Who are all these people, Rhonda?
They're all on this. They're all the state. They're all the
prosecutor,
the prosecutor, and
lawyers. Yeah.
yeah,
The sheriff department.
Sheriff, everybody except for anybody on Daniel's side. Honestly,
That is just insane.
Yeah, actually, it was. You know, all the DNA people, the city attorney, who's been doing. Is that? I think that's the same attorney that's been doing some of the depositions for the city of Oklahoma City in the civil suit.
I was wondering that.
I was kind of under the impression that they were questioning the lab person.
Yeah, they were, and so they had her. They had her boss. They had her boss, Campbell Ruddock. Let's see.
So, do you think that was Richard Smith, Kay, or the older looking? No, he wasn't.
He's the tall, slim, gray-haired guy with glasses.
Okay, that's what. Okay, I was wondering if that's who that was.
Yeah, that's him.
Richard Smith, or Dick Smith, as I like to call him.
Yeah, Dick's better.
Obvious reasons.
Well, I mean, surely if they were looking at personnel and these secret hearings, then Dickery should have been involved in that and all, because his mother-in-law was the one who fucking done the evidence.
Right. Well, that's not an issue, I guess, for them.
Right.
Well, it bloody well should be. It should be an issue for everybody involved.
We need blind testing so bad. I mean,
the fact that there was redacted
everywhere.
on all these lawyers. That I don't understand. How can they redact something that's happened in court against these lawyers?
I don't know. Alice, your guess or your theory or whatever you might have is as good as ours, because we can't figure it out either. So yeah. So really quick, I want to just do like a little 4-minute thing that Kay had mentioned something in Daniel's Team Daniel. Oh, I can't remember. Daniel Holtzclaw is not guilty Facebook page, something, and I wanted to share with everybody. If you've not seen this before, somebody was talking about one of the jurors in Daniel's case and what they were saying about why they decided to convict or whatever. I don't know if I can play this way, but I'll see if I can. And if I can, it's only about 4 minutes long or something, but it's just one of my little things I get excited about that I made. So let's see if I can make it work.
We're still together, but it's torn us up in our hearts because we know that Daniel is innocent.
The jury acquitted Daniel in 5 of the 13 cases, including Shardarian Hill, who said she was raped in a hospital bed, and Carla Rains, who 7 times denied she had been assaulted before changing her story. The jury did convict Holtzclaw in 8 cases, including Janie Liggins, where the only evidence was her word in a grainy visual of the traffic stop. They also believe 17-year-old Adara Gardner, whose DNA was on Daniel's fly.
Well, I mean, I'm not a DNA expert. They told us it was DNA from the vaginal fluid from a 17-year-old. The DNA people are pretty boring, to be honest with you.
In the case of CHAREE Ellis, who said her attacker was short and black, and the GPS did not match her story, Holtzclaw was convicted on all counts. On Ellis's case alone, Holtzclaw got 63 years. Tabitha Barnes, who testified on PCP, Holtzclaw was convicted on 3 of 5 counts.
Sometimes you wonder, I mean, with this year, did we get it right? I mean, honestly, I think we did.
Is this how the criminal justice system is supposed to work in America? Why is it that they just sort of picked and chose who to believe, not based on the evidence or the facts?
We took it count by count, went over it, discussed it, guilty or not guilty, and put it in a pile. We didn't split the baby.
Some jurors admitted they were concerned by the outside disruptions, but Speaks insists it did not impact their verdict.
The subject was never breached that if we don't find him guilty, there's going to be riots like Ferguson.
For Daniel Holtzclaw, his only hope is a favorable appeal, one based on a number of issues, including the subject of misrepresented DNA, what they call the circus atmosphere, and disruptions that pervaded throughout the trial, an unconstitutionally excessive sentence, and a jury that the defense says didn't look at each count on its separate merit.
How far will you go to get your brother a new trial?
I always said I will not give up, and until the whole world hears my outcry, I will keep on going. I will never give up fighting for Daniel.
Thought about this. Sorry, I forgot that was my first little production of credits and all that crazy stuff. Like, oh, wait, I got to go ahead and play that. I forgot that part at the end.
I just have
so
to, if I can I make another little comparison to Making a Murderer?
Please.
Yeah. I just read today, and this is an article from 2016, so not long after MAM came out, but it was mentioned in one of the emails. It's the In Touch article where they spoke to 13 of the 16 jurors. And one of the jurors said that they asked him what they thought happened to Teresa Halbach, and they said torture and rape, which was not brought up in Stephen's trial at all. They weren't allowed to. Then he shot her in the head and cut her up and put her in a burn barrel, he said. But one of the other ones, the juror said, let's see, where is it? Said if, no. one of the jurors who said they are skeptical of Stephen's guilty verdict. I mean, what the fuck?
Wow. Yeah, that's just, it's just so crazy that you can convict somebody of, you know, some of the most heinous crimes and then be skeptical
And then
about
be
it afterwards.
skeptical? Yeah. It's just like that guy said, you know, I hope we got it right, or
right.
I feel so sorry for that guy because his wife had cancer and she was dying. I mean, she was terminal, and I don't remember if she died. I think she died after the trial, but you know, he was in that long trial, missing all that time that he could have been spending with her.
That's very tragic.
And
there was Susan, there was another jurist on the Avery trial that went to the Dassey trial, and when asked, she said she went to find answers.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. Forgot about that.
What the heck? What the heck?
Well,
we
know,
all know they were bullied by 3 people.
Yeah. I mean, you know, he said that DNA is boring. Being in the situation that he was in, and DNA stuff is boring. He's right. He's right about that. I mean, think about sitting in a lecture and in the afternoon and you're tired and you really want a cup of coffee and you're in the situation he's in where what you really want is to be at home with your wife. And what are you thinking about? Are you listening to the DNA stuff?
Right.
Are you spacing off? I'm spacing off if it's me, so.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Well, you know, if you're talking about a man's life, I don't know.
Well,
you know?
true. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and if that's the case, that, you know, he should have been able to be excused from being a juror.
He couldn't get it. He couldn't get excused. I've been told he tried to get excused.
Wow.
Wow. Well, okay. There's more Oklahoma.
I mean, that's madness that he couldn't get excused. Because I got a citation for jury duty just at the beginning of 2020, but I just went through spinal surgery, so I was recovering for the spinal surgery, and I just sent them a letter stating, and I got excused for that. But now I've got jury duty on the 15th of this month.
Yeah, it's insane. It's unreal that you know, that things like that can. Because I'll tell you, I would not. You know, I can imagine that I would not be fully attentive going through the DNA testimony in Daniel's trial, in particular, because it was so purposely misleading and lied about. That, you know, it would just go right over. And one of the other jurors that spoke out, his name is Ron Hill, he just basically said, you know, that's what the DNA was, you know, that's what decided it for us. We, you know, we heard that DNA evidence, and what it means is he heard them, Galen Gigger, say at the end that the DNA, you know, was from the vaginal walls.
That vaginal fluid.
God. Oh God.
I mean, but that's it. I mean, I've got jury duty on, as I says, the 15th of this month, and we're being involved in these cases and everything like that. It's like, who do I trust?
Right.
Because I obviously can't trust the prosecution to tell me the truth, because there's been a case here with Luke Mitchell. I mean, that was basically a trial by media sort of case as well, the same as Stephen and Brendan. But the lies in that, and that's my own government, you know what I mean? My own justice system. And I thought we were better than that. But obviously, we're no.
I think it happens everywhere.
Exactly, aye.
Tunnel
And
vision.
I know we're no saints. I mean, I haven't said that we were saints, you know what I mean? But I didn't think that it was happening here. But obviously it is. but with having jury duty, it thingies my mind now, you know, how much do I trust in what the prosecution are going to put out?
Right. Yeah, it's
And what they're not going to put out, what they're going to hold back. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you trust? You just don't know what to trust. So, all right, I'm going to something that I'd forgotten about that some of you may find interesting is part of Michelle Malkin's investigates that second season, and she does an episode called Railroaded. So I wanted to share that with you now.
Awesome.
It's a very doesn't talk a lot about Daniel, but it talks about wrongful convictions, and so she shares 3 stories pertinent to that.
In the United States, we are governed by law and order. But what happens when the criminal justice system gets it wrong?
Definitely a nightmare. It was also surreal at the same time. I couldn't believe it was happening.
Wrongful convictions are real.
It did happen to me. I'm living proof.
And it has happened to thousands of others across the country of all races, genders, and backgrounds.
Wrongful convictions don't just affect the person that's in prison. It affects the entire family.
The first date, first baseball game, my daughter walking down the aisle. You know, you can't get that back.
And that's a heavy price to pay in any situation, especially if you're actually innocent.
Never thought that innocent people were arrested for something that they didn't do. I mean, much less to be convicted.
The amount of wrongful convictions or wrongful accusations are small, but it's a large number. Small percentage, large number.
A growing number when even one is one too many. Next on Michelle Malkin Investigates, we sit down with 3 men who had their lives turned upside down by false accusers, overzealous prosecutors, and dirty cops. You'll hear their unbelievable horror stories, how they kept hope alive, and their advice for fellow victims and families of criminal injustice.
Michelle Malkin Investigates. Now, here's Michelle Malkin.
It is better that 10 guilty escape than that one innocent suffer. This is a bedrock principle of common law popularized by British jurist William Blackstone, French philosopher Voltaire, and American founding fathers Benjamin Franklin and John Adams. We err on the side of protecting innocence and the rights of the accused because America values individual liberty over the state. Yet, the presumption of innocence has been turned on its head. For alarming numbers of citizens, it's presumed guilty until proven innocent. And the road to exoneration is long, rocky, and hellish. Here is a stunning statistic. There have been more than 2,000 exonerations in the United States since 1989. And the numbers keep rising, as you can see. 2016 set a record of 168 and counting. More than 70 of these wrongful convictions were the result of official misconduct, according to the National Registry of Exonerees maintained by the University of Michigan Law School. Hollywood and social media have caught on to the phenomenon. Wrongful convictions have become the subject of popular podcasts, crime shows, water cooler conversations, best-selling books, and movie scripts. But behind the statistics are real people whose real lives were ruined by appalling miscarriages of justice. They are not just numbers. They have names. Most will never become celebrities, like famous exoneree Amanda Knox, wrongfully convicted of murdering her foreign exchange student roommate in Italy. But their stories deserve to be told. On this episode of Michelle Malkin Investigates, we're shining light on the plight of Ray Spencer, Jeffrey Deskovic, and Brian Franklin. Let's begin with Ray Spencer, former military and law enforcement officer arrested, charged, and sentenced for sexually abusing his children. He spent 20 years in prison.
You know, I would have rather been charged with a murder than something like this. When the governor ordered my release, you know, he said, Mr. Spencer has spent more time in the history the state of Washington for this type of crime. And he said, I'm extremely disturbed by this investigation with the fact that evidence was tampered with and that the detective was sleeping with Mr. Spencer's wife. A sequence of errors.
How about Jeffrey Deskovic? He was found guilty of raping and murdering a classmate in 1989 and was sentenced 15 years to life.
Virtually all of the coverage was from a guilt-oriented presumptive perspective. And that was definitely prejudicial, and it set the environment under which the case was tried. And it made the overall environment more terrifying to me.
And then there's Brian Franklin, a former law enforcer in Texas, accused by a 13-year-old girl he barely knew of raping her. A heinous crime, if true, that would certainly turn many people against him, and did. These accusations cost him his job, relationships with children, and freedom. But what happens now that a jury decided that he didn't do it?
Hot 1, hot 2, hot 3.
In the state where football is king,
Oh, I can't believe you got that one.
it's not unusual to see Texans tossing the ball on a beautiful day.
Coming right back to you.
Okay.
And the Franklins are no exception.
We love to toss the ball. We did a lot of sports together growing up.
This family tradition was put on hold for the last quarter century until now.
And actually, we haven't tossed the ball since he's been out in May.
Paul Franklin is talking about his big brother Brian, who was recently released from serving a life sentence.
21 years is a long time.
Sure is, especially for a crime you didn't commit.
Was there ever a point along this terrible journey that you ever doubted your son?
No.
And Brian, was there ever a point along this journey that you felt like giving up?
No.
After decades of fighting and praying, Brian Franklin is finally a free man. And for the first time, he, his mother Irene, and siblings are granting us full access in his first national sit-down interview and telling us stories that have never been shared before.
That was after the verdict was read, and I had an ankle monitor on, and my attorneys cut the monitor off.
Oh, is this Dick DeGuerin
Yeah,
here?
it's Dick DeGuerin.
And this is?
Neil Davis.
And so they got the honor of cutting that off for you.
The judge brought out the scissors to cut it off, and there he is standing.
And there he
in
is.
the-
He's smiling.
Yeah,
This
he's
is
smiling.
the judge.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Before he was shackled, caged, and imprisoned, life was good for the Franklin family. Brian grew up near Buffalo, New York, with his parents and 3 siblings.
It wasn't quite a beaver cleaver raising, but it was close to it.
He got his bachelor's in criminal justice and eventually moved to Fort Worth, Texas to become a police officer.
As a mom, were you worried at all about his safety?
Well, I didn't want him to go into, it's just Houston. I thought that the crime is too bad. And then Dallas, I didn't want him to go, but I thought Fort Worth, that might be all right.
Over the next decade, he got married, had 2 kids, and eventually divorced, which meant he had visitation with his children on certain days. One of those was March 6th, 1994.
There was a little kid's birthday party. Stayed at the birthday party for a few hours.
Nothing happened, obviously, and uneventful.
Yeah, everybody had to leave at 5:30 because we had to return. I had to return my kids by 6, and Matt had to return his kids by 6.
When did your life change?
Well, probably the day I was arrested,
Which was?
April 21st.
Did you know what the charges were at that point?
That they told me on the way, and I just was in shock. I just couldn't believe it. This totally caught me off guard. I had nothing to do with nothing, and here I am going to jail.
Remember that birthday party? His friend's 13-year-old daughter accused Brian of raping her in the backyard around 6 p.m. But here's where things don't add up. There were a dozen people there, including Brian's kids. He left at 5:30. Her description of him didn't match, and Brian passed a polygraph. Then she changed the timeline of her story, moving the alleged rape from March 6th at the birthday party to the following week.
The problem is, Brian says he wasn't at her father's house on March 12th or 13th. He was shopping until late afternoon and has the receipts to prove it. He dropped off his kids, went home, ate, worked out, and went hot tubbing 45 minutes away from where the alleged incident happened. Brian told us he would have informed police of all the facts, but was arrested without an interrogation and without anyone asking a single question. That meant no opportunity to tell his side of the story.
She said that I raped her in the backyard of her father's house. And he called it aggravated sexual assault of a child.
You were charged with this heinous crime.
Right.
Did you commit the crime?
I didn't do it. I wouldn't do it, and I wasn't even there.
What was going through your mind, Irene, when you first learned this?
Well, we were all scared because this had never happened to anyone in our family. It was just so outrageous.
Scared, but not especially worried because they felt he had a strong case.
I thought for sure he would be found not guilty.
And Mom couldn't talk. And so Dad told me, and we had to fly up there to testify at the sentencing. And I remember looking at the jurors when I was on the witness stand, and they looked so hateful.
There were no witnesses, no DNA tests. All the prosecution had was the word of a 13-year-old girl and testimony from a doctor.
She said that she had not engaged in any sexual activity, but there was injury to her sexual organs.
Correct. Yeah, she said she had never had sex before. And so, the DA and the jury saying, oh, it must be from him.
The jury found him guilty and sentenced him to life. What they didn't know then was the girl later claimed under oath her stepfather repeatedly sexually assaulted her, which would have caused those injuries. But remember, the girl told authorities she was a virgin before accusing Franklin of rape. It was this lie that eventually paved the way for a retrial.
How could you get up every morning and look at yourself in the mirror, knowing that's on your hands, that's on your conscience and your soul?
She's had ample opportunities to tell the truth. We've had private investigators talk to her, and she makes the same line. It doesn't make any sense. When the evidence proves this, and you say this, and you're lying, what's wrong with you? I'm sorry whatever happened to her in the past, but I had nothing to do with that.
What was the outcome with the stepfather? So did he go to jail?
No.
No.
He ended up plea bargaining for a lesser charge of injury to a child, and he got 10 years probation.
Probation. Another miscarriage of justice there.
Even with this new evidence, it took 4 appeals over 18 years for Brian to get a new trial.
I didn't tell, the other inmates why I was there, and like I was telling my family, last night, I can't do
The suffering imposed by false accusations and wrongful convictions doesn't just disappear when an innocent man finally goes free. It's an injustice that remains raw and may never fully heal.
I felt guilty many times that I was having fun or I was enjoying it, or at family gatherings, tears were shed every single time because Brian wasn't with us, and it was unfair.
In 2016, Brian was finally granted a new trial. Long-buried truths emerged, and the prosecution had no effective rebuttals. One key witness, the accuser's stepbrother, contacted the family through a website Brian's other brother Darren had created.
Her stepbrother testified at my retrial, and he said that she did not like going to visits with Matt, her father, and that she wanted to get out of going up there. And once she falsely accused me, and since I was friends with Matt, that would solve the problem.
In less than 2 hours, the jury found him not guilty.
One of the jurors was waiting in the parking lot for us. And he said he was happy to right a wrong, and that, you know, he could be part of something, you know, to see that justice was done. The word is out that I'm innocent.
The truth did come out.
Yes, it did.
Took 21 years.
Yeah.
We were all crying, so happy.
Everybody in the dorms coming over, congratulating me and stuff like that. And the next day I left. And the song I was listening to on my radio at the time was I'm Going Home. So that was sort of ironic.
Sorry. And I needed to share. So when you walked out permanently, your family was there to meet you?
Yeah, went to the jails, been like 3 weeks there. Then we had the bond hearing. And then went to my family, and some of the media was at the courthouse steps. And I always wanted to give a courthouse step interview, and I was able to do that.
I think there's a picture of you with your arms up in the air.
Yeah, freedom! That's what I shouted when I came out.
So tell me, Brian Franklin, how does it feel? I'm going to Disney World!
It's that sense of humor that Brian and his family credit to pulling him through the dark decades, and his faith in God.
Justice, freedom, victory in Jesus.
Amen. Brother Paul says 1,500 people in several churches prayed for Brian over 21 years. Now the family is making up for lost time.
There goes an innocent man. All right. Okay, John.
Brian, can you start opening up? I need
how easily they slip back into old routines.
Corn, tomatoes.
The Franklins celebrated his one-year release by spending a meal together, the same way they did when he first got out.
Just having a meal with him is wonderful.
I think you can never take the simple things for granted.
Oh my gosh.
After that much deprivation.
When we left the courthouse and we were walking to the restaurant, Brian was just looking around. And I told him, nobody knows where you came from. I think he felt like he stood out, but he didn't. He was in a suit. He looked handsome. And so he was just looking around, and it was sunny, and, just the normal things that we take for granted, like walking down a street, was significant.
We might take these things for granted, but he doesn't.
Lunchtime.
Thank you, Mom. Looks great.
Before my conviction, I believed in God, but I didn't always act that way. And once I got locked up, one of the first things they do is they give you a paper Bible. And I started reading it. I had never really read the entire Bible. And I'm sitting there, what am I doing here? What is going on? I'm innocent. And so I started reading the Bible, and it opened my eyes and it encouraged my faith, and I guess the faith of the whole family.
Now they take advantage of every moment together to make up for those lost years.
I was innocent the day I got arrested, and I'm innocent the day I got acquitted, and I'm innocent today. I haven't changed. What the court has said about me has changed, but I haven't changed. I've always been innocent of this.
Brian Franklin spent 21 years behind bars. That's almost incomprehensible to us. So we wanted to show you what that looks like. Let's imagine that each of these 38-pound cinder blocks represents 1 year of his life, or 365 days. Now we have 21 of them. And as you can see, that's enough to fill up this entire area. The justice, or injustice system, stole 7,700 days of his life, and it's not over. Brian is legally vindicated, but not practically exonerated. Even though he was acquitted in 2016, he hasn't gotten an official certificate of innocence. And without it, he cannot seek compensation from the state. So he's living with his mother outside of San Antonio, working at a grocery store, and crowdsourcing through GoFundMe to help with day-to-day costs and attorney fees. So while his criminal case is technically over, Brian's fight for justice continues.
Fake news is everywhere. Shut it down for good. Ditch the liberal media talking points and find
Franklin through my continuing investigative work. I discovered Brian Franklin through my continuing investigative work on Daniel Holtzclaw's case. He's the former Oklahoma City police officer convicted of sexually assaulting 8 accusers without a single corroborating witness or piece of direct forensic evidence. After sex crime detectives conducted a sloppy, biased investigation, and prosecutors and their crime lab expert grossly mischaracterized their so-called smoking gun DNA evidence, deceiving a jury forced to endure protests, screams, and intimidation inside and outside the courtroom during a circus mob hijacked trial.
I believe, from my study of it, my research of it, that the guy's innocent. And my recommendation to him is to keep fighting. Never give up. The innocent never stop fighting, one way or another. Keep on fighting, and something will break. Something will break. You just don't give up hope.
And that's exactly what Daniel's family is doing, working tirelessly for the day Daniel will be free, unshackled, and exonerated. His sister Jenny refuses to let the critics and social justice mobs silence her. She is determined to prove her brother's innocence. She has pushed the facts of his case online, in the media, and now to the people who understand it firsthand, men and women who have been wrongfully accused and are now exonerated. On the southwestern coast of the United States, surfers catch waves, bikers cruise along the coast, and beachgoers soak up the sun. There's also hope for Jenny Holtzclaw that comes from strangers who've been in her family's shoes. Meet Ray Spencer.
Hi, how are you?
Well, how about yourself?
Jenny just did.
Having fun?
He's a man from a different generation and a whole different world. Someone she probably wouldn't have ever met if they didn't have one very important thing in common.
It was great to, actually meet the person that I heard that was wrongfully convicted, also a police officer, same as Daniel.
A bond forged on the thin blue line. Ray Spencer was a police officer charged with sexual abuse, just like her brother Daniel. Ray served 2 decades behind bars before he was exonerated.
You were the officer that put criminals behind bars, but going in as a person wrongfully convicted, how did that make you feel?
You know, everybody in prison says they're innocent. So if you really are innocent, nobody cares.
Jenny's brother Daniel followed in their parents' footsteps and went into law enforcement. His job was to serve and protect the people of Oklahoma City. He earned a reputation as a tough, hard-working cop and served a stint in the prestigious gang unit. But all that came to a screeching halt on June 18, 2014, when he pulled over 57-year-old Janie Liggins at this intersection. A 15-minute traffic stop that changed his life. Daniel says he pulled her over for swerving and let her off with a warning. She claims he sexually assaulted her. An accusation his fellow officers believed even before getting his side of the story. Before you started the interview, did you have a sense that he did the things that Janie Liggins accused him of doing?
Before we started the interview, I felt like that what Janie told me was the truth, yes.
The witch hunt began. OCPD created a profile of Black women with criminal histories whom Daniel had encountered on patrol. They started with Terry Morris, homeless with a record of drug use, diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic who couldn't pick Daniel from a lineup. She misidentified his patrol car and described her assailant as having skin with a dark color or was Indian or Irish or white. And she clearly wanted no part of this case.
I can't have this guy running around Oklahoma City.
But somebody else can do it. I don't want to. I just want to leave it alone.
Then there was Carla Raines, denying 7 times that she was a victim.
No, how did you get my name anyway on something like this?
And Shardarian Hill, who said this when the police interview was over.
So this is good evidence? Well, you tell me.
I think so, because y'all, even if he didn't even rape nobody or nothing, he's still in contact with people that he was arrested.
When I watched her interviewing the 2 detectives, I thought they've cloned mine. And then the one interview of an alleged victim where the detective forgets to shut the recording off, and she comes off with something, well, even if he didn't rape me, it was a good interview, right?
Yeah.
Something to that effect.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking at that point in time, that whole thing should have been shot down.
Should have.
Defendant is guilty of the crime of forcible.
But the case snowballed. In 2014, Daniel was charged with 36 crimes alleging sexual assault of 13 women. He was convicted the following year on 18, exactly half.
A cop in prison is somewhere near the bottom. And a cop in prison that's in on a sexual beef, you can't get any lower than that. But my first day in prison, the prison guard had a hold of my arm when he took me off the bus, and he could feel it shaking. He said, "You'll be all right." I said, "I was a cop." He said, "You won't live 6 months." And I ran into him again 17 years later, and he did a double take, and he said, "How'd you do it?" I said, "I have no idea."
What got you through those days?
That I had to accept the fact that with 212 years, I would never know freedom again.
Ray Spencer speaks hard truths about life behind bars. Cop killers are celebrated. Convicted cops, they're treated as the lowest of the low, in the same class as snitches and gang turncoats. Surviving in the regular yard is hard enough. But protective custody, as Daniel Holtzclaw has told me, is its own unique hell of both physical and psychological isolation. Inmates in protective custody are segregated. Their access to things like prison jobs or classes is severely curtailed. But Daniel can communicate with the outside world, and his team of supporters is using the internet and social media to push the facts of Daniel's case, especially those that never got reported, and to connect with people like Ray Spencer and Erica Fuchs.
In January of 2016, I was just surfing the internet, and I found an article about Daniel Holtzclaw.
Independent DNA researcher Erica Fuchs did not know the Holtzclaws, but
after reading a couple articles about him, I was confused about what the DNA evidence actually was. I felt like I was someone who had come upon the scene of an accident, a horrible accident, and so I wanted to learn more and see what I could do. I just went ahead and reached out and asked if they were able to get the DNA documents for me to look at.
She made damning DNA discoveries that discredit the prosecution's so-called smoking gun against Daniel. After months of research, Fuchs found it wasn't just the accuser's DNA on his uniform pants, but also DNA from at least one unknown male.
The Oklahoma City Police Department's forensic analyst had testified there was no evidence of male DNA in those two interior samples. The troubling part for me, too, was that the data page that showed there was male DNA was actually initialed by the Oklahoma City Police Department forensic analyst, very close to where it said male DNA. And also, this is information that you should follow up on, I think was approximately the wording.
This discovery supports the theory of innocent touch DNA.
It could have been a dry cleaner who handled the pants, someone who had DNA on a doorknob Daniel handled, or it turned out when Daniel stopped the teenager, she was with a man and a woman, and Daniel had to question all of them,
touching them and their belongings. Erica is exploring more on these theories and forensic science methods at the Innocence Network conference.
So often we're told the narrative that these cases are innocent mistakes. And one after one, we heard stories of official misconduct.
So being at the conference lets us communicate with other people who are very familiar with how wrongful convictions happen. I wanted to come to learn specifically about post-conviction testing.
Erica, Jenny, and Ray are just 3 of the hundreds who attended.
Dara was ultimately exonerated.
Exonerees taking the spotlight on the first night to share their stories. And Jenny taking advantage of the network around her to share Daniel's.
I wanted to come to hear other people's stories. I wanted to hear their fight. I wanted to hear their families' fights, network a little bit more and see the different ways that I can keep on fighting for Daniel.
In the room full of 200 or so exonerees, she met another one with some important advice.
Maybe the most important thing is to never give up. if I had given up, and I would never have made it out.
Jeffrey Deskovic was serving 15 to life for murdering and raping a classmate.
It was very surreal. I never thought that innocent people were arrested for something that they didn't do. I mean, much less to be convicted.
So you advocate for wrongfully convicted people now. That's your passion now.
Yes, it is.
And now you're going to law school.
I couldn't forget about the men and women that I metaphorically left behind. I knew that wrongful convictions were unfortunately not a rare thing. I want to be able to represent some of the people. So that's why I'm in law school. I want to free more wrongfully convicted people.
He tells Jenny his strategy as a lawyer would begin in the court of public opinion.
In media, at first when people are wrongfully convicted, they're not your friends.
Absolutely not. No, they are not. And I feel like the defense attorneys aggravate the situation because they don't respond back in the media to what the other side is saying, and they often prevent their clients from doing so. Look, if one side can do it, why can't the other? Think about how that one-sidedness really can play such an important role. It can affect the jury pool.
I've seen that firsthand with Daniel's case, how Daniel was convicted in the court of public opinion rather than inside of trial. So I do believe that you're right. You do have to speak to the media.
Daniel and his family wanted to tell his story inside and outside the courtroom, but his trial attorney insisted they remain silent and kept Daniel off the stand. As we told you, ineffective counsel is one of the key propositions of Daniel's direct appeal. And the only things the public had ever heard from him before or during the trial were brief excerpts from his single 2-hour police interrogation video. What most of America never saw was that Daniel was completely open and cooperative during that interrogation, conducted within hours of accuser Janie Ligon's allegations of sexual assault. He refused a lawyer, volunteered to take a polygraph, signed waivers to hand over DNA samples in his uniform, and to search his patrol car, phone, computer, and apartment.
There we go. And you get a free teeth cleaning with your first time.
You won't go none, though.
Forensic evidence corroborated everything he told detectives. Daniel had nothing to hide.
And we can go through a couple different things of why we've got you in here. But you sure there's nothing you want to?
Nothing.
So if we go off the video and watch that,
right,
you're still going to stick with your story.
Yes, sir.
If we go off DNA?
DNA as well.
Should we show you the video?
Yes.
You do want to see it?
Yes.
So there's nothing that...
Everything that I recall of that night is what was asked and everything. That's what happened.
Michelle was the first journalist to actually come out, want to listen, want to hear more information. First person who took the chance to say, what if he didn't do it? And that was all it took. And luckily she did. And I can't thank her enough for wanting to do that, because she took that chance and she exposed so much to the public. So for the first time, finally, other media outlets are wanting to hear our side of the story.
Remember Ray Spencer? He gives credit to 2 investigative reporters for doing a 3-day expose on his case and the corruption behind it.
You can't paint all the media as being bad. You know, it's like any profession. In Daniel's case, I'm sure that they made him out to be some type of a predatory animal. It looks to me like the 2 detectives just went out and started rounding up women and building their case that way without any merit, and they're just building this hype up. Then people have a tendency to buy into it.
And that's what's been so hard about this whole journey, is having other people report actual facts.
Jenny remains on the front lines fighting for her little brother to turn public opinion from villain to victim.
He needs to know that there are people out there that have survived.
Yeah.
That's what'll keep him going.
Your story gives me a lot of hope, because as a police officer being wrongfully convicted, being sentenced for over 200-something years for a crime you never committed, it gives me hope sitting here across from you. And I told Daniel about our interview, and
I said, Daniel, this interview is giving me so much hope because I know that one day you'll be free. And I don't know when that day will come and the truth will come out, but I believe that one day it will.
I can't do a lot. But I can be there for you and Daniel. Because this is difficult. But Daniel is going to get out. But the day he walks out, I'd like to be there to shake his hand, welcome him home.
Can't wait for that day.
The latest twists and turns in Daniel's case make John Grisham's novels look tame. A new bombshell dropped in May. The Attorney General filed a sealed motion containing secret evidence. The AG claimed the information was privileged and protected by state disclosure laws. One longtime criminal defense lawyer in Oklahoma City stated publicly that the secret hearings were unprecedented. Meanwhile, on May 25th, 6 leading DNA experts and forensic scientists filed a motion to educate the court on the DNA junk science in Daniel's case. 5 days later, the Court of Criminal Appeals issued an interim protective order filed under seal, sending it back to trial judge Timothy Henderson. That means Daniel's lawyers and Daniel himself were prevented from knowing anything about the nature or substance of this sealed information, motion, and order authored by the state on June 2nd. Without waiting for a reply from the state attorney general's office, as it had previously done with a separate amicus brief, the Court of Criminal Appeals quickly rejected the scientists' motion for leave to file their DNA-related amicus brief. On June 26 and 27, trial judge Henderson held 2 days of secret hearings. Daniel's lawyer was not invited to attend and was not notified until after the hearings were over. Local Fox reporter Phil Cross of KOKH obtained surveillance video outside the locked and guarded courtroom. In attendance were Henderson, a court reporter, a team of prosecutors from the DA's office led by Galen Giger, who prosecuted Daniel, Oklahoma City Police Deputy Chief Johnny Coleman, and an unidentified senior city attorney who handles civil litigation. Also in attendance, Campbell Ruddock, OCPD's crime lab supervisor and the boss of Elaine Taylor, whose scientific misstatements and failures we've been reporting to you since our Daniel in the Den series debuted last December. Momentum is building, but at the time of the taping of this episode, Daniel and his family were again in a legal holding pattern, awaiting the court's decision on whether he would have access to the protected information that could be the linchpin for a retrial. As all the intrepid exonerees in our program have shown us, the road to justice for innocent men and women who've been railroaded can be a long and grueling one. We'll keep you informed on all the latest breaking developments as Daniel and his family fight for his freedom.
Okay, there you have that bit of information.
Very emotional.
Yeah, it's really sad. Very sad.
Michelle won an award for that episode or whatever. Episode, I don't know what to call it.
I think
that
that's
was an episode.
Isn't that the one that was at the New York Film Festival?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very emotional, very heartbreaking and sad, just all the way around. With all 3 of the men that were, guests of hers, and then, Michelle, a journalist, getting emotional during the interview. The one gentleman, that's not very common that a journalist gets emotional like that,
and Daniel's sister. Oh my God.
Yeah, she.
Man, she did a great job with that.
She did. She really did.
Holding it together like she did.
Yeah, she did. She always does. She always does great interviews. Yeah.
I wonder if that guy that's from New York, the first story they showed, I wonder if his case is
He's been actually declared actually innocent. He's been able to file a civil suit.
I hope so.
You know, I believe. Oh gosh, now I can't. You know what? I did look up some information on him earlier, but I didn't get a chance to create any links or anything.
Who was the first one? Was it Brian?
Yeah, Brian. I can't remember his last name now.
The skinny one.
Yeah, the one in Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Jeffrey Deskovich, I can't remember how to ever say his name, but CHAREE had told me about his case quite a while ago, well, several months ago, I guess. And there was a little documentary, I think, was it on Amazon, CHAREE, do you recall? Or oh, you went muted. You were unmuted, and now you muted yourself again. Anyway, so he kind of tells his story. Oh, she went out and she's coming back in, it looks like. He kind of told his story in more detail in this little episode that CHAREE had told me about. And let's see if she can. Do you remember, CHAREE?
Yes, it was on Amazon Prime. It was, I think it was called Conviction. You know, it's the same as that one movie we watched. It's the same one, but it's just a 20-minute little documentary about what he went through.
Yeah. And what it's been like for him.
Too. And it's free, I believe, or it wasn't when I watched it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, if you have Prime, I think it's free. But yeah, it was quick. It was just a quick little 20-minute thing, and very interesting. And, you know, all of these men, Ray Price and Jeffrey Deskovich and Brian, I can't remember his last name, but all their stories are
Brian Franklin.
Franklin.
Yes.
Very, very, very sad cases. And I can't, I'll have to find out about Brian Franklin and if he's been able to, I know that Ray Price won a settlement.
It says that Brian Franklin is actively seeking wrongful imprisonment compensation from the state of Texas.
Still hasn't.
So he hasn't.
And the thing that's the most disturbing part about that is that he has not been given a certification or whatever it is of innocence since he won that second trial and was found not guilty, and all of the evidence and everything else, he still has not received a certificate that he has to have that makes him legally innocent.
That is such bullshit.
Yeah.
I tell you.
Yeah. It's just really sad.
It's all about the money.
It is always about the money, and it's always about the money, and it's always about not having to admit your wrongs.
There you go, right there.
Whether it's a mistake, like whether it's a genuine mistake, or not, you know, they just don't. They are so egotistical, yet they don't have the balls to step up and be men and women. It's usually men. Sorry guys, but it's just
there's both. Yeah,
there are both, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely both. But they just don't have no matter what the gender, they don't have the balls and the decency to admit. Thanks, Kat, for putting that in there. I wanted to have all those links ready for you. I just didn't get it done. Sorry. But yeah, Kat's dropping in some links into the chat about Jeffrey Deskovich and probably the other guys too. But it's just disgusting. And that's what I find more deplorable is that, that he's been found innocent, not guilty in his second trial, yet it's still taken all these years to get the state to be decent humans. Yeah. And so it's disgusting. It's horrible. So it's been I've enjoyed the questions in the chat and the comments. Thank you so much. Smart Duck and JD have kind of come in and asking, they're trying to get to know Daniel's case a little more and asking really great questions. And so, we can give you the best answers that we have, which, I don't know, the more I learn, the more I feel like I'm getting answers. So we'll give you ways to, get more information in Daniel's truth. And then, of course, by continuing to watch our different podcasts. Before I wrap up, are there any other comments from anybody on the panel? Alice, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Just that it's really sad what's happened, and I hope now that everybody that can look at the transcripts and Daniel's case and everything like that, like what's happened with Stephen and that they come out with things that can maybe hopefully get him a new trial sooner rather than later.
Agreed.
And thanks for having me tonight.
Of course. Thank you for being here with us. Kay.
I'm good. It was a good chat tonight. I've had fun.
Yep, it was. It was really good. All righty. Jack?
No, good stuff. Thanks for having me. I really never seen that last one before. So,
yeah,
really
I know it. I hadn't, we don't really talk about it very much, but it's really it's a really moving and provocative and interesting, chat. Kat, you want to take a look at the chat for me, please? Just go ahead and get them out. And Susan, what about you? What are your...
Oh, I just want to say sorry I popped in so late. I got out of work late tonight. But,
you're fine.
But I enjoyed it. I'll have to watch the first half hour when we get off.
It was a good chat, and I just appreciate you being here. So thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Very interested in this case, and I want to see him free.
All right, me too, and we're really grateful, to have you and others that you've encouraged to come along. Really appreciate that. So, that's that's the whole goal here. Make it more,
right.
No, yep, exactly. So yeah, thank you, Susan. CHAREE, what closing words would you have for us tonight?
Oh, it was an interesting discussion, and grateful for everybody that came to listen and ask questions.
Yeah, it was really good. It was a really good chat, and I'm glad I was able to share something that some of us haven't seen in a while, and that some of you haven't seen at all. So.
Haha! I just saw the dirty Ken, Susan.
The what?
Your description.
Yeah, I tried to just dress it up a little bit,
Alice in Scottish land, and that's a fact, Jack.
That's a fact, Jack. Exactly.
That's great. That's cute.
All right. Well, again, we're not sure what's going to happen next week. I can't even talk to the next sentence, so I can't really say much about next week. But anyway, it could be more of the same, and I think there's still plenty of information that a lot of newer people don't know that we can still share with you and help you guys that are just getting started to learn about Daniel's case. It has been a great chat. Kay, CHAREE, as always, thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge and information and all of the opinions and thoughts and comments from everybody in the chat. And then again to Alice and Jack and Susan, thank you so much for coming back on our panel again. And we'll see everybody hopefully on Thursday night when we'll discuss Chapter 5 of Death and Justice. And like I said about that, those cases are getting more and more interesting as the chapters go on. So catch up in Daniel's truth if you haven't already. And we'll discuss that on Thursday. And if nobody else has anything else to say, I will say hit that like button. You guys were great with the likes tonight. Hit the like button, share, talk about Daniel's case. And till next time, peace out, everybody.